Alright, so this match here is going to be game one of United versus Goldcoin United in the promotion tournament here. A very important match as the loser of this will be eliminated from the tournament. Now, both these challenger teams hungry to make an entrance into the LCS and prove themselves that they really do belong in this upcoming season, especially with franchising and a lot of the teams that would make it through here would be here to stay if they are able to afford a spot. Now, the initial bans coming out from both sides, relatively normal. We're going to see the Caitlyn, as usual, and Callista, a very strong pick in 715, along with Thresh. She's been a great playmaker and a really good support that's definitely very strong in the bottom lane and great within engages, and his whole kit does provide that utility that his team does want to acquire here, especially with the rise of bottom laners who aren't as caster focused, such as the Caitlyn and the Tristana. But the bans from E United are very playmaker focused in the way that they all do have that zone control, and they're very good blind picks too. They're very standard, and you won't really see them and losing their matchups extremely hard, and they aren't very risky. So E United gonna first pick the Tristana, a mainstay in the bottom lane here, as she does have the siege power along with the 1v1 potential once she gets scaling, and the late game kind of net that these AD carries do have, because definitely gonna make it easier for them once they do reach this late game if they were to fall behind to really pull through, as Tristana is huge in terms of damage once she gets that scaling going and gets those items. And also a very safe AD carry in the way that her rocket jump is very strong at making it easier for her to maneuver in fights and stay safe in the lane. So the Varus, however, coming out from Goldcoin United's response, we've seen this increasingly common in patch 715, as he does have his own engage and CC of his own in the bottom lane, along with the poke that in the early game, although Tristan does eventually acquire that range, does get punished a little bit by this Varus, along with the very lane dominant Gnar, who's really popped up recently, which is responded to by the Camille. Now, Camille, both of them are going to have very strong side lane pressure coming into this game, and very strong, especially with the Camille, once she gets that one item, that Trinity Force, and even that 3-item breakpoint. While Gnar, he might get there a little early on his power spike, especially with the range advantage he does have in the top lane. But this Camille is going to be scaling up and becoming that 1v1 monster who can lock up any member of GCU, take them down, and get through these fights with that hook shot, which is so strong in escaping damage and getting around. Now, United gonna opt for more of a defensive support, while Goldcoin United looks to combo that Varus with the poking of the Zyra, whose lockup is very strong, and she's almost like a second mid laner once you hit the late game. And she's going to be, depending on the masteries, we might see an Ardent Sensor coming out from Goldcoin United on that Zyra, which that item's been so strong recently, and we've seen whole comps really adapted around it just to get it as quick as possible and have it affect as many as possible. And after that ban phase 2, strong mid laners are mostly going to be taken off the table, with the AP casters in the LeBlanc and Galio, along with the hyper carries and high damage dealers of Cass and Corki. Goldcoin United, for their jungler pick, is going to opt for the Rek'Sai, who's really kind of surfaced as this very strong early game focused and maneuvering jungler who can really move through all the spots in the jungle with those tunnels and get around the map as quick as possible. So very good at responding to plays, getting counter ganks off, and with the flash W along with the tunnel to initially engage a gank can be very devastating if one member is down a summoner on the side of United. But United does have quite a few escapes of their own, with the move speed of the Lulu, with the hook shot of the Camille, the rocket jump of the Tristana, and even the body slam from the Gragas. So definitely Gold United are going to have to play around those dashes and escapes, along with the Talia ult, as we now see Talia locked in, and the Syndra to counter it. Very strong mid lane laning picks, along with good roaming coming out from GBM and a stable yet very strong burst and consistent damage dealer out of Fly. But as I was going back, definitely going to have to play around these dashes and escapes that are present on the United team, as they do want to make it possible for them to pull out these plays, especially with the double CC skill shot composition of the bottom lane of Gold Coin United, and as previously mentioned, the Rek'Sai. Now, this Syndra also going to fit into that puzzle, as she does have her own CC, however, once again, skill shot reliant. So this mid lane, depending on really the skill of the two mid laners here, however, it is Fly versus the Talia coming out from GBM, so two strong players in their own right. But it's really down to how they play out the wave shoving and the lane, and how well Syndra can stop this Talia from getting those roams out and making it easier for them to get the CC off with using possibly a wall in these team fights to separate out the carries and mostly squishy composition with a relatively tanky Gnar and Rek'Sai of this Gold Coin United team. Now, Rek'Sai, very versatile champion in the way that she can either become that tanky engager and become mostly a knockup bot by late game, or depending on how ahead she does get in the early game, can be very strong in actually carrying the game, as a more damage-focused itemization is possible. However, on the LCS stage, that might be kind of a risk here, as following the meta and following what's mostly normal is usually what is picked. However, in this early game, not too much. It doesn't seem like there will be too much fighting here, as the level 1 of most of the teams isn't too devastating. However, GCU does have a pretty strong bot lane to pull all something off if they do so please. But gonna look to be just walking around, and these junglers, we're gonna see Dandy actually start in the top lane, getting a leash possibly from the Camille of Licorice, which could be one way to maybe get an early gank onto that Gnar and start snowballing this Camille in a disadvantaged lane with that ranged kind of dispute here. Or it could lead to a 3 or even 4 camp clear, possibly into the bottom lane Rift Sculler, to make it harder for Santorin to get in as early as possible on these squishy targets that can get locked up by that Zyra with that incredibly high laning phase damage that's very strong in both weakening the enemy bottom lane and really putting a huge amount of pressure on them. So Santorin going to be starting in his own Raptors here, with a bit of assistance coming out from Fly, but that's going to be a quick way to get a lot of XP in the jungle, which we've seen more and more. This Raptor start has just really taken over the professional scene, and although not as common in solo queue, but just a very strong way to get as much experience as possible, to just get that extra few seconds on the enemy jungler to really make it easier to pull off these ganks and reduce the chance of a counter gank, ruining what could be a possible summoner spell or a flash that's so important alongside these kills. But in the mid lane, Talia getting the shove advantage, as usually she does with that Q, that threaded volley in the early game, going to allow her to get a ward down around the top river, which will make it harder for Santorin to get around for these ganks. However, he is currently clearing his blue side jungle, which this bottom lane of GCU is getting the push, which could be a further gank once they are ready for a dive, whether this be a level 6 play with solo to follow up and join them, along with the CC of the bottom laners with the Zyra and Verisult, but could also be very influential in the early game if they are able to execute that perfect play. But Santorin going to have to respond to this middle lane as GBM just, although using a lot of mana, going to get stunned up by Fly and take a heavy amount of poke, is constantly pushing in this lane. However, a CS advantage probably going over to Fly here as he's able to pick up a bit more, knowing that GBM just tried to get the push and back as soon as possible, but going to take a sort of greedy recall position and actually sacrifice a few minions in XP based upon the fact that Fly's able to cancel it by spotting him out there and possibly get a small advantage in this lane as he'll back soon enough and get this wave shoved towards GBM's tier 1 and make it easier for himself to continue this lead, which is now an 11 CS lead. Going to be hard for Talia to equalize that, especially as GBM did not back on a cannon wave. But in this top lane, we're going to actually not see a huge lead, which I personally thought would be a little more prevalent in this early game, as Licorice, although having that E to engage, is definitely on the back foot in terms of the Q and autos from Gnar, which are ranged here. But as the lane continues on, we'll possibly see more of that Gnar taking over the early game, but as I mentioned earlier before in Champions, like this side lane pressure are going to be so important in taking this game over, with Licorice trying to build up to that monster Camille that's at that around 2 to 3 items, which can 1v1 almost anyone on GCU here, maybe at the exception of, say, Solo, possibly comboed with Santorin, but a very strong thing to look forward to if you're a member on United. And along with that, we're going to see continually a CS lead building up in this bottom lane, with both of them opting for Doran's Shield to reduce that poke respectively and reduce that all-in potential of the other AD carry. Both junglers actually showing themselves in this top lane. I'm not sure if Dandy was already seen, but those two were hovering around here. However, Dandy going to complete his back, and Licorice left alone in this situation. Santorin might come around here for a dive as the wave pushes in, and Gnar does hit that Mega Gnar form. But Santorin just going to take his chance to find some wards and give the deep warding position into an ult coming out from Solo. Hold that thought. He's almost going to get a solo kill here, barely missing it by one auto attack as he uses that ult in Mega Gnar form to engage. And then solo kill in the mid lane just as I speak, as Fly unloads his entire combo onto GBM, who does not predict the damage well enough and does get killed through that Syndra burst as he hits the level 6 advantage quicker than GBM. And GBM taking sort of a greedy back earlier as he got the Dark Seal, and now going to go for that Null Magic Mantle after being solo killed here, and he's in a loss in this lane. And the bottom lane of GCU also having a health and CS advantage, so everything really looking forward for GCU here, as they almost get a solo kill in the top lane as Flash is burned from Camille. But here in the replay, we can just see Fly just able to hit all of his combo, which GBM just wasn't prepared for, and dies straight up before it. Santorin hovering around this top lane now with Camille's flash down, and Solo going in on Mega Gnar form, but Licorice is going to get out easily with his E. No harm done there, but definitely you can see the pressure that's starting to build up onto Licorice in this early game, along with Fly and GBM in this middle lane, as Fly's trying to reduce the movement that GBM really does have the chance for in this lane, and hit all those stuns and follow up with that poke. However, Dandy going to be hovering around by, staying on that Gragas for any sort of E-flash. And although Fly does have his flash up, a millisecond of CC could be the death for Fly. And Wine going to be right nearby too, but Dandy going to poke him out, make him fall back a bit, as Santorin does also do the same for GBM. And that's going to be a disengaged play from both teams. But in the bottom lane, we can see the 1v1 of the AD carries, as both supports had roamed up for that. Nothing coming out of it, but 15 CS deficit for Deathly, although he will catch this wave. So looking good for Rikara and Wyan, but they do have to always be wary of the fact that if you don't put Tristana in too much of a hole in this early game, she will outscale you, as she does hit that 3-4 item break point, which will really accelerate her strength in 1v1 and pretty much all aspects of the game. Already we can see her damage on YN here as he's forced to flash as the rocket jump comes out from Deathly, and that's only on a BF sword here. But Santorin and Fly going to pressure Dandy. Ult coming in from GBM going to separate the two of them. Dandy and Santorin low, but Santorin's going to be the one falling while Licorice holds Solo in an ulti, almost going to drop him low, and he's going to get the solo kill. And the game has been paused. Not sure what the issue is here, but we will be right back as I skip through this. Okay, so getting back in that replay, we can see the fight, and really the whole story of it was Syndra was separated from Santorin, which made it so hard for them to keep him alive and take down Dandy in that situation, where they tried to make the invade work. However, the unexpected Talia ult provides wonders for United to keep them in here. And the pause is going to continue. I will skip forward a little more here. Alright, we're just about to get back into the game as what the issue's been resolved, and we can see that Licorice, it seems they have gone back. Not sure what the bug was there, however, it seems all of that has been reversed, so scratch what I had previously said. No kill going to be going on to Santorin, and no invade from Fly and the Rek'Sai here, as GBM and Dandy just decide to opt to take their own blue buff. And no solo kill for Licorice in the top lane. So going back in time, GCU still holds that lead and holds that pressure in all lanes before that disastrous play had happened, which could have spelled worse if they had gone back to after that had occurred. This also gives the bot lane a chance to catch up as they start shoving in their own wave and kind of closing that CS lead that Rikara has built for himself. But we don't see that it's going to be happening anytime soon, as he still holds a lead after catching this wave for Deathly. But that also does bring me to my point of now that we've hit this level 6, look for something to happen in this bottom lane with Santorin, with Dandy, and really with that those two options of CC. Oh, so Licorice gonna ult out Solo while Dandy and GBM roam up here. Solo gonna be forced to back, and he's gonna go down here to GBM. So a good roam coming out from the Talia with that wall, following in with Dandy, as the wards aren't there for Solo in the top lane, and he overextends just without that vision that's necessary. And Fly and Santorin gonna make a play here in response. The ult coming out from Santorin, but Zeyzal gonna ult himself to keep him alive along with burning that flash. But that might be first turret going over to GCU. However, in the top lane we can see that they're trying to win that turret race. But it looks like it's going to go over to Rikara here unless he's careful. And yes, so Rikara going to take that first turret. Licorice and Dandy going to respond in the top lane. So that means the gold is almost going to be equalized here, as it's 1-1 and 1-1 turrets along with that. I don't see where most of the gold is coming from though, because CS disadvantages are like they're plaguing United here. So could just be me misreading the gold, but here we see the replay. Solo just going too far, not respecting the power. And he does have flash, which he could have burned in the early stages once he saw that ult coming out. But he did know that Dandy had flash up and had that E up along with the cask, so it might have just been a death sentence regardless. Now, and he wasn't in Mega Gnar form to tank up any of that damage or make some sort of outplay with the ultimate. So he just goes down as a response to that lack of vision and just not knowing what abilities are up on the side of GCU. Or excuse me, United. But some contesting here are going to go into Zazel dropping down as Wyan, along with Fly, help out Santorin get that damage out and burst him as he's forced to use the heal, which we have seen heal on supports recently in the promotion tournament, along with either cleanse or exhaust or some other summoner spell on the AD carry, which personally I haven't seen much success out of it or much worth, but in some cases it might actually work out with that CC that's so very prevalent on this GCU team, with that Varus ult, with the ult coming out from Zyra and her E to follow, along with the knockup from Santorin, Solo's stuns, and even Fly's stun of his own, which is going to lead them into trying to push down this middle turret as they come out to a 1.2k gold lead. But they're going to fall back and reset here to spend that gold and keep that advantage cemented. In the top lane, however, we can see that the Gnar has pulled through, although at one death here, and has taken that CS lead and taken command of the lane where he can get those strong break points, especially with that one item, that Black Cleaver, which makes it so much easier for him to chase down in these side lanes, especially now that the lane has become even longer, although at the expense of his own turret. But we can see definitely a lot more possible plays and solo kills that could come from solo. But Camille also going to be scaling up in the way that she does have her 1v1 potential, especially once she hits that Trinity Force that she's building up to slowly with the acquisition of the Phage and Sheen. We can see a little basic trading between Licorice and Santorin. Nothing going to come out of it as Santorin does not opt to use his flash to get that CC, knowing that Licorice does have a flash of his own and that E to escape. But we're going to also watch how GCU does go for this Rift Herald here, and they're going to be trying to take that for usage to get a lead in these turrets, as previously they have not had the ability to get a standalone turret without it being equalized. However, their own turret take in response to the play made on the top lane. But we're also the vision of GCU has been so strong in keeping these objectives constant and kind of shoehorning United into areas where they don't always want to be. Now, although United has pulled off plays of their own, they have been kind of restricted in the way they move around the map, as Dandy did definitely want to use that E-Flash a little bit more in the earlier game. And along with that cask which he now has up, we haven't seen much of any usage coming out of that, mostly because of in the top lane river especially, you can see all those control wards and even the Rift Sculler take, which will be up now for them to pull off. But you can see all these wards in the blue side jungle of United along with this river, as it's just dotted with red. Now, although the bottom lane hasn't had nearly as much of this, and two turrets going down for both teams, we're going to see both non-middle turrets. But yeah, so the Rift Herald used on the mid lane turret of United, but that's not going to drop as it does get a large amount of damage chunked from it, however. But yeah, we can also, this vision is so instrumental in making the plays of United harder to pull off, and that's why they are currently at this deficit. However, Dandy going to use his ultimate on these two of Wine and Fly, but nothing going to come out of it as it's disengaged by the ult of Rikara. And that's just going to be a few of them backing here on GCU, which will really be at no cost to them unless this turret is to go down, but Rikara does stay to clear out the wave and make that not a possibility for United. And that's going to be a wave going straight to Rikara, right into his pockets here. And nothing lost for GCU as they do manage to take the entire outer ring of turrets, which along with that previously mentioned vision is going to make it so much easier for them to control that Drake, which we do have a Cloud Drake coming up soon, as they already had gotten the Mountain Dragon, but also to control the jungle of Dandy and make Santorin that beast who's able to constantly steal camps and make it so hard for Dandy to get more tanky and sustain through the high damage composition of GCU, along with making it easier for them to make these plays that have been hard for E United to find here. But a little bit of vision contesting going around in the bottom river, with United pulling out ahead and getting the vision of their own to stop that aforementioned invading of the jungle and making it so they should get this mid lane turret here, as they do want to find some sort of in, whether it be with the Talia ultimate or an engage from Dandy, whose cask is almost up here, which could be the go sign for them. And GBM going to get spotted out in the red side jungle of GCU by Solo. Nothing happening, but a control ward loss for Solo, as Licorice is able to push in the wave and start to gain a foothold back on this lane. And Talia ult used to lock and fly, who's going to be forced to flash over it. And we can see already that that United is trying to pressure GCU around this turret, so they're able to get it and get the full outer ring for themselves. With a lot of vision contesting going around here, wards being placed and knocked down, but GCU going to come out on top of that, as they're able to get wards in this bottom side river bush of the mid lane, along with a bit in the jungle of United. And they're going to be starting up this Cloud Drake, pulling it out of the pit for an easier take. And knowing that Dandy is predominantly melee champion, with his only abilities for stealing would be the Q and the R, which the R he wants to keep and the Q not able to. He's just going to walk up and smite it, though. Santorin outside of the fight. And GCU going down a bit low here, as the damage of GBM and Deathly is very strong in keeping them off. Fly and Rikara very low, the main carries of GCU. So that's going to be a disengaged fight from GCU, who do lose that Drake for pretty much nothing, as Dandy, as I previously said, just walks up and takes it from them. So poor resistance and defense from GCU just leads them to give away an objective at no cost, even when they did spend some time building up that vision and making it easier for them to get. So a bit of the blame on Santorin, but also the positioning of them in that fight. Well done by United, especially when we can see the cask. But yeah, he just goes in, Santorin misses the smite, and the rest of United not there to really kill him or stop him from going in. We can see in this fight how Dandy is able to get that CC off with the ultimate, which gets them so low with Deathly's abilities and the AoE damage from GBM. So they're forced to just leave. But Wyan and Dandy going to be fighting over this small control ward here in that small bush alongside the top lane river. Some vision going down for United in around the Baron pit, which is so vital now that although GCU does have a very strong Baron take with the Mountain Dragon along with the Varus, it's going to be hard for them to do that, along with United starting to get a little bit back into this game, although still at a 2k deficit in terms of gold. But we can definitely see that GBM and Deathly are starting to be forces to reckon with, as Deathly does pull ahead in the CS game here against Rikara, along with, although Licorice is at a very large deficit, we do see him starting to be a very strong champion when it comes to pushing in these waves and making it so Solo is forced to respond to them on Gnar and trying to take him away from as many fights as possible, along with the TP advantage that United currently does hold, which could be vital in securing the next play, whether it be around this Baron pit or at some sort of turret. But hold that thought, the cameraman did miss it. However, Solo Kill just gets a full Solo gets a full solo kill onto Licorice, who, I don't know what happened there, but Licorice just dies for no reason, and I guess I was wrong, and as Solo is trying to really take over for himself now, which although should be the other way around, Licorice just falls for no reason there. And that's going to be the waves shoving back in favor for GCU. Now, Dandy and GBM trying to team up to take down Fly here, who gets hit by almost everything. And he, although using his ult on Zazel, trying to get something out of it, just will fall to the three of them. Killed going over to GBM, who's starting to scale up on this Talia and be very strong. Here we can see the replay of that solo kill. Licorice goes in thinking that he has the ability to get all this damage onto Solo, but Solo's just too tanky and outplays him as he gets that Meganar form using that ultimate as Licorice isn't able to burn him down quick enough. So the very strong, the Warden Mail and Ninja Tabis coming out to be very strong for Solo in this situation, who uses that tankiness to sustain through the fight and end up prevailing with a very lucky transformation there with using the ultimate. And Licorice is not accounting for the possible burst that can come out of that Meganar. But Santa and YN going in for an invade. However, I think I've seen this already. This invade did not seem to be very good for them last time they had one of these, but they're just going to leave after getting a few wards down, spotting out Dandy, and making it so they have the priority on this Baron over the United team, who's now back to being a little further behind. However, they have closed up a majority of this gold lead, being only down around half of 1,000. So very good job by them, whether it be from Ryu or Deathly here. A very strong way to get back in this game. And we can see also Dandy starting to get a bit of a lead upon Santorin. But the strength of this Camille, although getting solo killed just a minute ago, is going to be shown as I said previously, Solo forced to move around the map. And Camille does get the tier 2 in the bottom lane here, which another free turret going over to United, going to lead them to have a gold advantage and go straight for the Baron, but they're not going to start it up, only hide in the bush, which could be devastating for United if they're to check this. Excuse me, I think I made it sound like GCU was the team who was checking, but Dandy going to use the cast to separate them all out, and that's going to be GCU falling back after that, realizing the play wasn't worth it, and the turret looking to be taken by E United. However, they have not commit to any sort of engage here, knowing the flash and ultimate of Dandy is down, which is their main source of engage. Although they could have a Talia ulti, I don't see a huge amount of engage on the C United comp, and Licorice and Solo may be getting into a little bit of a war of attrition here, but Solo already knows how that plays out and is going to hold the pressure here while Licorice forced to go back here. He's going to clear the wave quite quickly, and a bit of poke coming down here along with harassment, definitely going to drop to half health from the abilities for Kara and Fly, as the entire team of United does stick around this Mountain Drake, which had recently spawned. And although United does have a bit of the advantage in the vision game here, we did see Licorice just back, who does have TP, but they're just going to give this over to GCU. Now, GCU's Baron is looking a little more scary, but definitely going to take that opportunity to burn down this turret and open up the turret lead once more as they get that outer ring and start a gold lead for their own while they start to clear out wards around the Baron. But as I go back to that, the GCU Baron very scary with this Syndra Varus combo along with the sustained damage of the Zyra. So they're going to be ripping through this Baron if United makes the smallest of mistakes. This game is looking quite even in the way that both teams do have the ability to pull through, whether it be through some sort of objective play, the side lanes, or even just the 4v4 with the top laners in their own sort of battle here, which we already saw how that had previously went for Licorice. But whichever team is able to get to these objectives first, whether it be United with their very strong sieging or GCU with their very strong objective and Baron take, this could go either way, truthfully. But definitely scaling up to that point, that break point, as he had just hit that 3 items along with the completed boots. So definitely is going to be incredibly scary in these upcoming fights, as he does hold a quite large lead over Kara, who has 2 items and a BF sword compared to that 3 item of the Deathly. But Solo going to get picked off by the Talia ult and almost die, but Licorice is going to fall to the Syndra ulti as Fly follows with the roam. GBM on the wrong side of the map here, but the rest of United gonna follow here and almost take down Solo. The cask used by Dandy, however, Solo flashes and nothing happens to Fly as stun hits GBM, who burns the cleanse to get closer to Fly here, wanting the kill potential, but that's going to be Fly falling and Solo TPing out and making it back to his base. But that is a TP advantage over to Licorice, who is still dead for another 15 seconds, but could be another way in making these plays around the objectives here, as Solo in the side lane is not able to get to that Baron, so hopefully looking to counter this wave as quickly as possible as being pushed out by GBM. However, Solo going in for another solo kill, but he's not going to see any opportunity there and fall back as GBM does take this opportunity to recall on his own, spend that gold which he's accumulated. Here in the replay, we can see Licorice using that ulti onto Solo, who in turn uses the ulti to stop GBM, who had walled in, and get that double stun, which locks up Fly and Solo in this constant small kind of war of whoever goes closer will die. But the rest of the team of United allowed to respond and collapse on the two of them, which forces the TP out from Solo and the death from Fly. But in the top lane now, Licorice coming out to a CS lead, which is quite weird as he was around down, I think 40 to 50 CS earlier. So very interesting how this top lane's been sort of back and forth. However, Licorice at a 0 and 3 state, gonna ult right back into Solo, which is Solo gonna hit Meganar soon, and he's just gonna be forced to burn it. Nothing really coming out from either team, just very low Solo, but not going to be a huge advantage going over to United, as although Nar does go back, they're not going to lose much, and he will be able to catch this wave being pushed in by Licorice. Not going to be the loser of any CS or XP, but we can see the mid lane getting pushed in from United, who have built up a 3k gold lead, which previously that's around a 5k swing from what GCU previously had. So very well played by them. I think a majority of the lead coming from Deathly and possibly the jungle too, as Dandy does have a kill and an assist over Santorin. And we can see the item difference, as I mentioned before, from the two AD carries. We can see the 3 items along with the Hex Drinker from Rikara. No, excuse me, Deathly. While Rikara has the Blade of the Rune King, Infinity Edge, and Runons. But GCU is going to burn down this Baron and smite it immediately, which is a play, but going over them. But Camille taking the inhibitor, and that's going to be Zyra going down, but Dandy going low. He's going to drop too, so a 1-for-1 play. However, 4 members of GCU do get the Baron, but they are going to lose their inhibitor for it, as Licorice just keeps on pushing, getting this first Nexus turret down to half HP. The backs are going to follow through for this GCU team, but United pushing through the mid lane, getting as many turrets as they can before this Baron buff is able to respond and do the same towards them once GCU builds up a siege, possibly looking to take a second inhibitor, but it's not going to go down as GCU does get there in time to stop it. But that's around, I think, 3 turrets going over to United along with an inhibitor and a chunked out Nexus turret, which leads them to have a 7k gold lead, although GCU does take this Baron incredibly fast, as I mentioned before, that very strong. Oh, excuse me, Deftly is going to be the receiver of that Baron. I have been a little bit off today, but definitely using that auto attack to get the kill along with the Baron. An insane play out from him. So GCU trying to defend as hard as they can, but a second Cloud Drake going over to E United. Excuse me, sorry for my mistakes this game, as I've been a little bit off, but we can see that GCU going to have to keep responding to these waves and making it as tough as they can for United. However, United does have both the incredible gold lead they built up now, which is a 7k gold lead as previously mentioned, along with that Baron buff. So their siege, although they do have a very strong team for the siege and for that split push pressure, it's only going to get exponentially stronger as they target this last outer turret of GCU's, which will drop here too deftly, along with Solo, who does try to interrupt a bit or harass him a little, but absolutely nothing going to be the product of that. While Licorice just keeps on pushing in this bottom lane, forcing him to constantly be splitting up and taking notice to these waves, along with GBM, what is wrong with me today, pushing in this mid lane towards the inhibitor. Now, Licorice going to get caught up in Chain CC'd. He's going to fall low and eventually drop to Rikara, but at what cost, as United is able to take that last outer turret on the base, and kills going over to GBM as he takes down Fly, and going to get taken down on his own though by Santorin, who is very low in the situation, along with Wyan and Rikara. The entire team of GCU not in the place they want to be, on the opposite side of the map, and that's going to be deftly pushing through on this second mid inhibitor, but they're going to look to end the game straight out right here, as Zazel and Deftly using that Tristana to push in, but GCU did try to back here, which is going to force United a little bit behind, but Solo still in the back of the team. Going to pick off Dandy and definitely dropping low, but he might get the kill here onto Solo, but he's incredibly low. Anything, even just an auto could kill him. Zazel going to fall on his own also, but a second inhibitor and an exposed Nexus for United. Very beneficial to them, although they do lose many members. So United going to be constantly forcing this shove, while Solo, along with the rest of his team, going to keep trying and to clear the space of minions and make it all impossible for the back door. But they're looking on a very bad position. They're in a very bad position here, as there's almost nothing they can do. If United is able, if an objective is up, United can just take it uncontested, or else GCU will be forced to leave the base and just risk a backdoor, or risk the entire team of United fighting them as they are at this gold deficit, or the entire team of United just bum rushing the base with that exposed Nexus to take it down. Super minions are going through two lanes here, but definitely going towards that top lane, gonna make it so all three lanes are being pushed towards that base, and gonna split up the entire team of GCU, as United can stay after they do push in that cohesive unit that will be able to out team fight GCU here, as they have a comp more focused around these individual skirmishes or plays that can be so strong for them. But now at this deficit, we're going to see Talia ult coming through, splitting up Santorin from the rest of the team, opening up that last inhibitor to go down for United, who continue the push. And really all that's left is, although the inhibitor does respawn the bottom lane, which United are going to take down without any fight really, as they do try to push them off, but they're just going to take it easily, hoping to engage or end this fight, or even just rush that Nexus. But just a small kind of trading here going out. Dandy gonna use his ultimate on Santorin and fly. However, Zyra ultimate gonna respond as Licorice starts to get caught out. Santorin goes a little too far with the ultimate. He's gonna fall to Licorice as Dandy gets the stun to Solo, but does not get anything out of it. Fly going way too far up, gonna get caught up and killed by the Licorice, and Solo dropping low. He's gonna die too definitely, as that's gonna be the game going over to E United. Now, starting out in a sort of behind position, they just managed to outscale and use that Talia, which I think has been very strong for them on GBM, to just win these fights while splitting them up and out macroing GCU in almost every way possible, as they're able to get the objectives, they're able to push through in that sieging that's been so strong, and GCU not really playing towards their comp. They definitely are trying to play around these team fights, which has not been working out for them, as their comp is not perfectly suited for that. So a well-played game out of E United going to lead them to victory in game one of this best of five series for the promotion tournament here. Looking a little scary for GCU as E United just full on outplay them there.